Hi everybody, and welcome to Big Joe's Journal. My name is Joe Tilden. I'm the host of this program. Well, we're hanging on, excuse me, with this holiday season, and we're taping this program on what is known as Cyber Monday. And of course, Cyber Monday supposedly is the day when people shop online and order all their Christmas goodies. It's not a day that's very, very popular with the local merchants. There's a lot of that, excuse me, a lot of that business that is being done, by computer and all that. It's not going into our downtown stores and our shopping malls around the local area. Some communities have taken steps to promote the local area here in Rutland. This past Saturday, which was a bitterly cold day, they had a tour of downtown Rutland to try to encourage people to see what's available and what we have down there. There was the big thing this weekend in this area was the FIS Women's Skiing Championships up at Killington. And from the looks, excuse me again, from the looks of it, they had a very, very large crowd, probably around 35,000, 40,000 people, which is a big crowd in Vermont. I know the weather wasn't that conducive to standing outside and watching skiing competition. Saturday was very cold. And I know from down here in the valley in Rutland, it was cold enough, a lot colder up on Killington. And of course, Sunday, we got hit with a storm that came in late in the day. The weather was still cold. But a lot of people, a lot of them go up there for the social life. And they go out and they can view the skiers and the competition and all the rest of it. So for the fourth year in a row, Thanksgiving weekend was a very, very profitable weekend for our motels and restaurants and everything else, around the area, with the number of people that come to our area and to witness the best of women skiers, the best in the world. And of course, our local heroine, Michaela Schifrin, did very well. She won her specialty on Sunday for the fourth year in a row. On Saturday's competition, she came in third. I think there are a couple of girls from Italy that finished ahead of her. But Sunday she reversed the trend and got top spot, where your three top finishers pose and have their pictures taken and all that. So entertainment, a lot of skiing, a lot of real old winter weather, cold and snow, and that's what we've got. This holiday weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, which is now history, we had some of the worst weather we've ever had. People traveling back and forth, and said, Wednesday, it's going to be real bad. And Sunday, when people are going home, it's going to be even worse. And unfortunately, the predictions were accurate. A lot of accidents, especially out in the Midwest and the far West. And when people are coming back home on Sunday, the traveling was even worse. And today, in this area, we're getting the brunt of that storm. In fact, Governor Cuomo in New York State is giving state employees who work at the state capitol in Albany and surrounding area a day off, because it's no day to be out there traveling. And Vermont, likewise, a lot of school closings today. The part of the state that's being hit the hardest, of course, is the far south. That's Bennington County and Windham County. And pretty much here in Rutland County, but as you go further north, the amount of snow gets less and less. And we're not out of the woods yet. Supposedly, the storm we have now is being pushed back west. And we have what might be called a nor'easter coming up the Atlantic coast, and that's going to reverse direction, and we're going to get hit all over again. So, rather an unusual start to winter in Vermont. I mean, we've had snow as early as October, but it comes and then it goes. And we don't really get hit hard with snow until the month of December, about halfway into December. But this year, things are a little different. And whether that's due to climate change, I don't know. But this weather we're having now is something, that you expect, say, in January and February. So it's a little bit early to get smacked with these heavy snowstorms. And of course, with the schools closing, taking snow days, if this trend continues on through the winter, it looks like our schools are going to be open year-round because they'll have to make up these snow days. They'll be added on to the end of the year, or else they'll be scheduled during scheduled vacations here in the spring. For example, winter vacation and spring vacation in April. And if they can't make all that up, then that has to be added on in June. So it's a possibility a lot of schools will be in session close to the 4th of July, and then they have a short summer, and then the new year starts again at the end of August. So the first of the big holidays, Thanksgiving, of course, is now history. And for those of you that are sports fans, football fans, looking at the college schedule, the big news seems to be that the Crimson Tide of Alabama will not be participating in the championship playoffs this year. And right now it looks like it'll be Ohio State, Clemson, the winner of the Southeast Conference playoff, which will be this Saturday between LSU and Georgia, and either the winner of the Big 12, which could be Oklahoma, or the winner of the Pac-12, if it were Utah, will make up the Final Four. If I were a bowl promoter and I wasn't part of the championship series, I'd be looking at a bowl game between Notre Dame and Alabama, which would be a big draw, a huge draw. And I would imagine that the bowls that are not going to be part of the championship playoffs are probably putting a very enticing package together to try to lure those two schools into considering playing off in their particular bowl. I think that is a game that would get as much attention as the playoff games. And right now, I'm not sure what bowls where the semifinals are going to be played. And we won't know for sure who the 4 top teams are until after the various league championships are decided this weekend. There are far too many football bowl games, and some of them don't really amount to anything, like the Tuxedo Bowl that's played at Yankee Stadium. It's ridiculous. Bowl games belong in the South, or they belong indoors, which football is not really an indoor game, but with the stadiums we have now and the almighty dollar that the promoters are trying to get out of the public, you have an indoor stadium in Detroit, and there will be a bowl game played there. Of course, Yankee Stadium will be out in the open. Other than that, you pretty much got to fight the elements. The coldest bowl will be, I believe they call it the Humanitarian Bowl, and it's played out in Boise, Idaho. And those of you that have seen football games on television in Boise, Idaho, you know that surface is very, very unusual out there. That's blue. It's a blue carpet. It's artificial turf. but it is blue, and probably the only football field that is blue in the world. But that is probably the coldest bowl, and I think if I were a college football player and headed to a bowl, that's one of the last ones I'd want to go to. In many cases, you see these bowl games, and it's pretty evident that the players that are participating don't want to be there, especially when a larger school is matched up with a smaller school. For a smaller school, it's a chance to make a name for themselves. For a larger school, they don't really want to be there. A school that goes 6-6, and then has to go to something like, I'll say the Humanitarian Bowl or one of those real minor bowls. Now, they don't really want to be there. They want to be home. Football season for them is over. They had a lousy season. 6-6 is not a good season. But under the NCAA rules and catering to the almighty buck, the team has to win 6 games to qualify for postseason. Well, of course, when you got 18, 19, 20 bowls, there aren't that many teams with overall winning records that qualify. So you take a 6-6 team and match it up with another 6-6 team, and well, you got 2 lousy teams going to play a lousy game. So, it's been stretched a little bit too far, and you wonder how some of these bowls make money. There are more empty seats than there are people there. But at one time, when I was much younger, many, many years ago, you only had really 4 bowls that amounted to anything. That was the Orange Bowl in Miami, the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, which was played at Tulane Stadium. Now it's played in the Superdome. You had the Cotton Bowl in Dallas that was played at the Texas State Fairgrounds. You had the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, which is the granddaddy of all bowl games. And at the end of World War II, well, a couple other bowls came into existence. The Harbor Bowl in San Diego. Mainly was to satisfy NBC. NBC had broadcast the Rose Bowl for years. And the way the thing was set up, CBS had the Orange Bowl, ABC had the Sugar Bowl, the Mutual Radio Network, which is now gone out of existence virtually, had the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and NBC had the Rose Bowl. Well, CBS went on a big expansion in the late 40s, and they outbid NBC for the Rose Bowl. So it gave them a doubleheader that day, the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl. Well, NBC had to have football on New Year's Day. And so they persuaded powers that be to create 2 other bowls. And one was in Jacksonville, Florida, that became known as the Gator Bowl. And out in San Diego, California, the Harbor Bowl, which is now the Holiday Bowl. So NBC could have football on New Year's Day. Another game that was always played on New Year's Day and was broadcast by the Mutual Network, always following the Cotton Bowl, and that was the Shrine Bowl. That was played in San Francisco. And now I'm not sure where they do play the Shrine Bowl. I know it's moved all over the country, but it does not have the popularity that it had at one time. So we're into the holiday season, the myriad number of bowls, and you got the New Mexico Bowl, the Sun Bowl, and well, everything else. Well, on a more serious note, Congress comes back into session. One thing they do very well, they all agree and vote unanimously on vacations here and there, but they're back for a short session, as this holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas is going to be short. And the big news, of course, is impeachment. The Democrats are going to be determining this week. They're going to have some more witnesses, and of course, it's going to be on television, I believe, beginning Wednesday of this week. There'll be more hearings before the House. Be a different committee that'll be having the hearings, and their job will be to determine if there is enough evidence to impeach the president. Well, if they decide it is, and they vote to impeach by Christmas, which the Democrats want to do, then they do impeach Donald Trump, then he will have his case heard before a Republican-controlled Senate, probably in January. And of course, to convict, there'll have to be 67 votes in the Senate. That means that the Democrats, if they vote solidly as a bloc with 47, will have to persuade 20 Republicans to cross the aisle and vote to impeach, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will get some Republicans. I don't think the Republicans are going to vote on a bloc against convicting Donald Trump. But I don't think they are going to get the 67 votes that they need to convict. So Trump will go down as the third president to be impeached and not convicted. First one was Andrew Johnson, 17th president. The House voted to impeach him, went before a Senate, and one Republican senator, Senator Ross from Kansas, voted not to impeach, and consequently, the Senate at that time, of course, was smaller than it is now. You only had 48 states. And that vote of Senator Ross of Kansas was enough not to convict Andrew Johnson. But of course, he's in record of being impeached. The second one, of course, was Bill Clinton. And again, there were not enough votes in the Senate to convict him. And the third one, without doubt, will be Donald Trump. And we'll see how Trump handles this one, how he lies his way. When the Senate does not convict, I'm sure he'll start crowing. And he'll be a little hard to live with. Well, he's hard to live with anyway. He'll be a little harder to live with for the next few months. But the big thing is that we're getting closer and closer to November. And that's when the American people have a chance to make up for the huge mistake that they made in 2016. And of course, to correct that mistake, it means that people have to get out and vote. A lot of people, they looked at the two candidates, they couldn't buy either one. I know I had trouble buying either one. But I said, well, we'll take the worst of two evils. And I was very, very tempted to write in my own name, but that would have been a wasted ballot. So I supported Hillary reluctantly, but she ran a lousy campaign. Even though she got the popular vote, which Trump keeps denying up and down, although the figures show that, once again, he's lying. He did pick up enough votes in the Electoral College to become the 45th president. And we have suffered, not only in the United States, but all around the world, the free world, I should say. There's been a lot of uncertainty. You never can't believe this guy because he lies every time he turns around. One of the last lies he told was on a surprise trip that he took to Afghanistan over the Thanksgiving holiday. And he said, we're negotiating with the Taliban. And they want to negotiate and they want peace. Well, this came as news to the Afghan government, which is not included in the peace talks, came as news to the Taliban. They said, we're not negotiating with the United States. They pulled out. Trump pulled the U.S. out of negotiations, which he did. So once again, here's Trump telling a big lie, getting people's hopes up falsely, and no negotiations have been taking place. But hopefully they will start again. There's also a rumor that one of the three stooges, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, may be resigning soon, going to Kansas to run as a Republican for the U.S. Senate. And it'll be interesting to see how he does. Kansas has been pretty much a red state until 2 years ago when they elected a Democratic governor, and they have a legislature that is just about 50-50. That was a Republican-controlled legislature for a lot of years. But they now have a Democratic governor, and I'm not quite sure what the totals are in the legislature out there, but I know it's about 50-50. This seems to be a trend that is taking place across the country in all these special elections. Virginia, the Democrats control the legislature down there, and they picked up a lot of local seats. Kentucky elected a Democratic governor. It was a close election. In Alabama, they have a Democratic senator, Senator Jones. And he's going to have competition, although the Republicans have a primary coming up between the sheriff, who's definitely a racist, and the former senator. And now I'm having a senior moment. He's the former attorney general, and he wants his old Senate seat back. So he may try to get the Republican nomination and try to persuade enough people to switch over and vote for him. But in Alabama, the city of Mobile now has an African-American mayor. Now, 20 years ago, if you said the city of Mobile, Alabama would have a African-American mayor, people would have said, no way. But they do. The African-American mayor in Birmingham, I believe, in Mobile. And there's one other city down there that has elected an African-American as mayor. The city of Atlanta, Georgia, has an African-American mayor. So the tide is changing. It's taken time. And it's taken the leadership of people like Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King to finally get this thing rolling. It's like a snowball, and all of a sudden now it's going downhill. And the country is becoming more and more and more aware that it's not the pigment of your skin that makes the difference. That we're all Americans. We're all one. And the old idea of segregation, although it still exists, unfortunately, in the state of Mississippi, Mississippi elected a Republican for governor. Gradually, the tide is changing. Louisiana has elected a Democratic governor. So the tide is beginning to swing. And hopefully it will continue to swing. And the only way to do that, folks, as you know, is to get out and vote. You can't sit at home, sit on your hands, and expect change to take place. You have to get involved. As I say, you can demonstrate and demonstrate from now till hell freezes over. But if all these people that are demonstrating would go to the polls and vote, or vote absentee, or however you want to do it, but cast your vote, then we can have a change in November. And it's a change that not only the country needs, but the whole world, the whole free world needs it. You know, it's pretty obvious that this man that's in there now is Putin's puppet. He seems to like people that are like him, evil. For example, Saudi Arabia. They've never, ever been held to account for kidnapping an American citizen and then butchering him. And it's pretty obvious that the crown prince there, Saudi Arabia, it was done in his direction, but he denies up and down knowing anything about it, and Trump buys it. Everybody else knows the guy is guilty. Is Trump so stupid that he doesn't know it? And then, of course, there's his buddy in North Korea, and it's gotten to the point where North Korea gave an ultimatum to the United States. Here's this little country, a little small country, and they're giving an ultimatum to the United States. Come back to the table and negotiate or else. Well, we're letting a little chop there call the tunes. Trump calls himself a great salesman, but he's been taken to the cleaners by a little rocket man. Certainly he follows the dictates of Mr. Putin. One of the biggest examples of that was the double cross of the Kurds. This thing had been planned in advance. It has to have been planned in advance because it came off too smoothly to be a spur-of-the-moment thing. Trump calls Erdogan, the president of Turkey, says, "We're pulling out, it's all yours." And no sooner have American troops started to vacate than who moves in? The Turks move in to push back the Kurds. Russian troops move in to start occupying quarters that were built by and formerly housed American troops. Syrian troops, who are not our allies, taking over some of the patrol routes that Americans patrolled. And Mr. Trump has second thoughts, and he says, well, we got a big oil field over there we've got to protect. Why? That oil doesn't come here. Say, where does it go? Well, we're going to occupy it so that ISIS can't get hold of it, make all kinds of money off of it. I don't know. We seem to have a foreign policy that fluctuates. And it doesn't always fluctuate for the better of this country. Right now, we have relinquished our role as a primary force in the economy of the Pacific. And China has replaced us. And even China is dictating to us. And as far as the European Union goes, it looks like the president of France is at least taking the position of leadership in the European Union. Well, you got to say, where do we go from here? Can we hold on for another year? Well, we've made it through a little over 3 years. I think we can hang in there a little bit longer. As long as our courts stay active and everything that the Trump administration proposes is rejected by the courts, we'll be able to hold on until we get a new president, takes office January 20th, 2020. I'm sorry, 2021. 2021. The new president takes office. And the question is, of course, who's that new president going to be? Well, as they used to say when I ran when running for the state senate in Vermont, you had your fun time, and then you got serious. And the fun time was usually in the summer. Then you had your primaries in September, and after that you got serious because you had September and October to prepare for a November election. And for the Democrats, fun time is just about over. And the Iowa caucuses are coming up very shortly, and then New Hampshire primary, then South Carolina, and then Nevada, and we'll be underway. We'll see who stays in and who doesn't. Right now, your top 5 contenders in the Democratic Party are former Vice President Joe Biden, running second, Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts running third, Bernie Sanders running fourth, Peter Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and running fifth, the junior senator from California, Kamala Harris. She is my favorite for vice president. I think she'd make a great vice president. And, well, we'll see what happens. Now is the final push. The big news will be the impeachment from now till Christmas. Then after that, if the Senate will convict, will be the big news. Then in February, when we get into the caucuses and the primaries, we'll see who lines up, who's still there, and who's out. So with that, we're going to wrap up for this week. And as usual, we pray that Almighty God in His infinite wisdom will continue to bless this country, the United States of America. With all our problems, we're still the greatest nation on God's earth. So have a great week, handle the weather, and we'll see you all next week.